Hey, what's up guys, and welcome to another Unsolved Mysteries video. And I love making these videos, so let me know in the comments down below if you'd like to see more in the future, because I'll keep making them because I like them, but just let me know if you'd like to see more. And anyways, make sure you sit back and relax, and make sure you subscribe to the channel. It's the channel's goal to be at 250,000 subs by the end of the year, and I think we can do it. So please subscribe. But anyways, let's get into the first mystery. The Phantom Barber of Pascagoula. The Phantom Barber of Pascagoula is one of the most bizarre and honestly weird and eerie unsolved mysteries that I've ever read about. In the summer of 1942, the quiet coastal town of Pascagoula, Mississippi, was gripped by fear as an unknown assailant broke into homes at night and cut the hair of unsuspecting victims while they slept. And yeah, you just heard me right. He broke in and cut their hair. Super weird. This series of incidents left the community in a state of obvious panic. I mean, who else wouldn't be panicked if some dude was breaking into your house and cutting your hair? The strange saga began in early June 1942. The first reports came from local residents who awoke to find that locks of their hair had been cut off during the night. The intruders seemed to target young girls and women especially, though there were a few cases involving men. Victims typically discovered the missing hair the next morning, along with signs that someone had tampered with their windows to gain entry. The initial incidents were unsettling, but they took a more sinister turn when two young girls, Mary Evelyn Briggs and Edna Marie Heidel, were attacked on June 13, 1942. The Phantom Barber broke into the room at a convent and cut their hair while they slept, but this time he also left bruises on their heads, suggesting a more violent confrontation than usual. This escalation heightened the town's anxiety, as it suggested the barber was becoming bolder and more aggressive towards the people he cut their hair. The community of Pascagoula responded with heightened vigilance. Residents secured their homes, law enforcement increased patrols, and men formed night watch groups to catch the intruder. Although, despite all of these efforts, the Phantom Barber struck again. On June 29th, Mrs. R.R. Taylor woke to find her hair had been cut while she slept beside her husband, who remained undisturbed throughout the incident. The barber had entered through a slit in a window screen, leaving no other clues behind. The most alarming incident occurred on August 5th, 1942, when the Phantom Barber attacked Mrs. Terrell Heidelberg. Unlike previous cases, this attack was violent. Mrs. Heidelberg was struck with an iron bar and severely injured. Her husband, a local lawyer, found her unconscious with clumps of her hair scattered around the room. This attack marked a significant departure from the Phantom Barber's previous methods, indicating a potential shift towards more aggressive behavior, which, is bad. The town's fear peaked, and the police intensified their efforts to catch this culprit. Suspicion fell on various individuals, including a German immigrant named William Dolan, who was arrested after police found a hair sample near his home. Dolan was a chemist and had a contentious relationship with some locals, which may have contributed to his arrest. However, despite being convicted of unrelated crimes and serving some time in prison, there was no definitive evidence linking him to the hair-cutting incidents. Many believe he was a scapegoat, and the true Phantom Barber remained at large. Over time, the attacks ceased as abruptly as they had begun. The last reported incident occurred in mid-August of 1942, and the Phantom Barber seemed to vanish without a trace. The mystery of the Phantom Barber has never been solved, leaving behind a legacy of speculation in Pascagoula about this super weird crime. Theories about the identity and motives of the barber abound, ranging from a mentally disturbed individual to a prankster who took things too far. The Phantom Barber of Pascagoula is a story that is just weird and surreal in a sort of way. But this one is definitely one of the weirdest unsolved mysteries I've seen, and anyways, this was interesting. On to the next one. The Colonial Parkway Murders. The Colonial Parkway Murders refers to a series of unsolved homicides that occurred between 1986 and 1989 along the Colonial Parkway, a scenic route in Virginia that connects Jamestown, Williamsburg, and Yorktown. The murders claimed the lives of at least 8 people, all of whom were young couples. and have since become one of the most perplexing and chilling mysteries in American criminal history. The first victims were Kathleen Thomas, who was 27, and Rebecca Dowski, who was 21, whose bodies were discovered on October 12, 1986. Thomas was a graduate of the Naval Academy, and Dowski was a student at the College of William and Mary. Their car, a white Honda Civic, was found pushed down an embankment near the Kathleen Annex overlook on the Colonial Parkway. The two women had been strangled and their throats slashed, and their bodies were found inside the car with evidence suggesting they had been dragged back inside after the initial attack. The killer attempted to set the car on fire, but the fire did not ignite. The second pair of victims, David Knobling, who was 20, and Robin Edwards, who was 14, disappeared on September 19, 1987. Their bodies were found 3 days later on the shore of the James River in the Ragged Island Wildlife Refuge near Smithfield, Virginia. Knobling's truck was found with the driver's side door open with the radial plane and some items missing, indicating a struggle had occurred. Both victims were shot to death, and the nature of their injuries suggested a close-range attack. The third incident involved Cassandra Haley, who was 18, and Richard Keith Call, who was 20, who vanished on April 10, 1988. The two were on their first date and were last seen leaving a party together. Cal's car, a red Toyota Celica, was found abandoned at the York River overlook on the Colonial Parkway, with the key still in the ignition and some personal belongings inside. Despite extensive searches, neither their bodies nor any evidence of their fate has been found, making their disappearance one of the most haunting aspects of the case because they were just never identified or found. The fourth and final known incident in the series occurred on October 19, 1989, involving Daniel Lauer, who was 21, and Anna Marie Phelps, who was 18. They were traveling from Virginia Beach to meet Laura's brother when they disappeared. Their car, a gold Mazda, was found abandoned at a rest stop on Interstate 64 with no signs of a struggle or theft. Their skeletal remains were discovered nearly 6 months later in a wooded area near the rest stop. About a mile from the car was found. Both had been murdered, though the exact cause of death was difficult to determine due to the condition of the remains because, it took 6 months to find them, so they were just decomposed. The Colonial Parkway murders share several commonalities, including the victims' young age and the fact they were all couples, suggesting the possibility of a serial killer targeting young lovers. The secluded, picturesque locations where the crimes occurred and the absence of any robbery as a motive add to the eerie nature of these murders. Despite extensive investigations by local, state, and federal authorities, the case remains unsolved. Over the years, numerous theories have emerged. Some speculate that the murderer could have been someone familiar with the area, possibly with a law enforcement or military background, given the methodical nature of the crimes and the choice of isolated locations. Others have suggested the possibility of multiple killers or a copycat scenario. Advancements in forensic technology have provided new avenues for investigation. In recent years, DNA evidence from the crime scenes has been re-examined, and cold case units have revisited the case with fresh eyes. The families of the victims have also been active in seeking justice, advocating for more resources and attention to be devoted to solving these heinous crimes. The Colonial Parkway murders have left a lasting impact on the communities in Virginia, instilling fear and uncertainty that persists decades later because, as the video title is, these are all unsolved, so the killer got away. The serene beauty of the Colonial Parkway, which once symbolized tranquility and history, now holds a darker association of these murders. The case remains open, with investigators hopeful that new technology or a crucial tip might eventually lead to a breakthrough. Dyatlov Pass incident. And I know this case has been covered to death on YouTube, but I just wanted to include it because I just love the Dyatlov Pass incident and the case in general. It's probably one of my favorite unsolved mysteries just because, I don't know, it's always appealed to me. So I'll go over it just because it's iconic and I've always liked it. So the Dyatlov Pass incident is one of the most enduring and perplexing mysteries of the 20th century in Russia. In 1959, 9 experienced hikers led by Igor Dyatlov set off on an expedition into the Ural Mountains of the Soviet Union, only to perish under bizarre and unexplained circumstances. Despite numerous investigations and countless theories, the true cause of their death continues to elude researchers and enthusiasts alike. On January 23, 1959, a group of 10 students and graduates from the Ural Polytech Institute of Severodvinsk, now the Yekaterinburg, embarked on a skiing expedition to Orten, a mountain in the northern Urals. The group, consisting of 8 men and 2 women, was led by 23-year-old Igor Dyatlov. They were all seasoned hikers with Grade 2 certification and experience in long ski tours and mountain expeditions. The goal of their journey was to reach Orten and return by February 12th. On January 28th, one member of the group, Yuri Yudin, fell ill and turned back, leaving 9 hikers to continue. This decision, while seeming unfortunate at the time, would ultimately save his life. The remaining group proceeded towards their destination, meticulously documenting their progress with diaries and photographs, and I love these photographs that they took because they kept it very well documented. The last entry in the group's diary was dated February 1st, the same day they pitched their tent on the eastern slopes of Kodet Sika, a name that ominously translates to Dead Mountain in the local Mansi language. It was here that their journey abruptly ended. When the hikers failed to return as scheduled, a search party was dispatched on February 20th. On February 26th, searchers found the abandoned tent, which had been cut open from the inside. It was half buried in snow and contained the group's belongings, including shoes, clothes, and food supplies. Although the most puzzling discovery was the hikers' footprints, leading away from the tent towards the nearby woods. These tracks indicated that the group had fled in a hurry, and what's especially weird is some were barefoot or wearing only socks despite the harsh winter conditions. The first 2 bodies, those of Yuri Kornichkenko and Yuri Doronchenko, were discovered at the edge of the forest under a large cedar tree. They were dressed only in their underwear and had built a small fire, suggesting they had to try to stay warm. Nearby, searchers found broken branches indicating that someone had climbed the tree, possibly to look for something or someone. 3 more bodies, including that of Igor Dyatlov, were found between the cedar tree and the tent, positioned as if they were attempting to return to the campsite. The remaining 4 bodies were not found until May 4th, buried under several feet of snow in a ravine 75 meters from the cedar tree. These hikers were better dressed than the others, suggesting they had taken clothes from their dead comrades. Their injuries were severe. Nikoli Bringogunor had a fractured skull, while Yunomila Dubina and Simon Zolatravia had crushed ribs and significant internal damage. Notably, there were no external wounds corresponding to these injuries, leading investigators to describe the force required as comparable to a car crash. The official Soviet investigation concluded that the hikers had died to a compelling natural force. However, the lack of clear evidence and the unusual circumstances surrounding their death sparked numerous theories. Some suggested an avalanche forced the group to flee their tent, leading to hypothermia and injuries. Yet the tent's condition and the terrain's characteristics made this theory questionable. Others speculate about infrasound-induced panic, a military test gone awry, or even extraterrestrial involvement. One particularly compelling theory involves a phenomenon known as paradoxical undressing, where hypothermic victims remove their clothing due to a false sensation of overheating. This could explain why some hikers were found nearly naked. However, it does not account for the severe internal injuries or why the tent was cut from the inside. In recent years, advances in technology and forensic analysis have provided a new insight. Some researchers have suggested a katabatic wind, which is a powerful cold wind that could have caused the hikers to panic and abandon their tent. Others propose that a slab avalanche, a type of snow slide, could explain the injuries and need to leave the tent rapidly. Yet, even with these theories, many questions remain unanswered. The Dyatlov Pass incident has captivated the public's imagination for decades, inspiring books, documentaries, and even movies. And one of the most dark and kind of unsettling, more unsettling than dark, is one of the pictures. And I was talking about the pictures earlier, but they have one picture that looks almost like a Yeti sort of figure. It's up on screen now, and I have no idea what that is. Is it someone just, joking around and went out into the woods and acted like it was Yeti or Bigfoot or something? Or did they actually snag a picture of Yeti? Dennis Martin. Dennis Martin's disappearance is one of the most perplexing and unsettling missing persons cases in American history. Dennis Martin, a 6-year-old boy, vanished in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park on June 14, 1969, during a family camping trip. Despite an extensive search and numerous investigations, his whereabouts remain unknown. The Martin family, coming from Knoxville, Tennessee, had a long-standing tradition of camping in the Great Smoky Mountains. On that fateful Father's Day weekend, Dennis, his older brother Douglas, their father William Martin, and their grandfather, Clyde Martin, set out for a weekend of adventure. They planned to hike from Cades Cove to Spence Field, a scenic spot near the Appalachian Trail. It was a journey the family had made before and one they anticipated with excitement, so this wasn't anything new to them. The Martins arrived at Spence Field on the afternoon of June 13th and set up camp. The next day, the family met another group of campers, the Key family, who had 2 young boys around Dennis's age. The children played together, darting in and out of the dense forest, engaged in typical childhood games. At one point, the boys decided to play a prank on the adults by hiding and then surprising them. Dennis's father watched as his son, clad in a bright red shirt, ducked behind a bush. But that was the last time he would ever see his son. Minutes passed, and when the other boys jumped out to surprise their parents, Dennis was nowhere to be found. Panic set in as the adults realized Dennis was missing. They called out his name, scoured the immediate area, and retraced their steps, but there was no sign of him. The search quickly expanded, and by nightfall, rangers from the National Park Service were involved. The search for Dennis Martin became one of the most extensive operations in National Park Service history. Over the next week, more than 1,400 searchers, including park rangers, National Guard troops, and volunteers, combed the rugged terrain. Helicopters, bloodhounds, and even psychics were brought in. But despite their efforts, no trace of Dennis was found. Several theories emerged about what could have happened to Dennis. Some speculated that he became lost and succumbed to the elements in the dense, unforgiving forest. Others suggested that he might have been attacked by a wild animal, though no evidence supported this. One of the most chilling theories involved the possibility of abduction. The search continued for weeks with thousands of man-hours invested in the effort. Yet as summer turned to fall, hope began to wane. The vastness of the Great Smoky Mountains, with its steep slopes, dense underbrush, and hidden ravines, made the search incredibly challenging. The weather, which had been mild at the time of Dennis's disappearance, eventually turned against the searchers, adding another layer of difficulty for the searchers and the overall search effort. Despite the official search ending, the Martin family never gave up hope. They returned to the park repeatedly, continuing their search independently and hiring private investigators. The case also caught the attention of the public and media, with various theories and rumors circulating over the years. Some believe that Dennis might have been taken by someone living off the grid in the park's remote areas, while others speculated about more sinister motives. In the years following Dennis's disappearance, the case has remained open, but no new leads have emerged. The FBI became involved, but their investigations also yielded no conclusive answers. The disappearance of Dennis Martin remains a haunting mystery, a tragic story that continues to resonate with those who remember the case and the searchers who were involved. The impact of Dennis's disappearance extended beyond just his family. The case highlighted the need for improved search and rescue operations in national parks and led to changes in how such operations are conducted. And just a super sad story, but on to the next one. The Atlanta Ripper. The Atlanta Ripper is a moniker given to an unidentified serial killer or possibly killers responsible for a series of brutal murders in Atlanta, Georgia during the early 20th century. The killings were predominantly targeted African American women, occurred between 1911 and 1912, causing widespread fear and panic in the community. The case remains one of Atlanta's most notorious unsolved mysteries, drawing comparisons to the infamous Jack the Ripper of London. The first known victim attributed to the Atlanta Ripper was Belle Walker, a 23-year-old African-American woman who was found murdered on May 28, 1911. She had been walking home from her job as a cook when she was attacked. Her throat was slashed, a hallmark of the Ripper's brutal modus operandi, so he was known for slashing victims' throats. Over the next several months, more women would fall victim to similar fates. each attack escalating the community's anxiety. The pattern of the killings involved young African American women who were often found with their throats slashed and bodies mutilated. The victims were usually discovered in isolated areas such as alleyways or near railroad tracks, and there were often signs of a violent struggle. The killer's apparent targeting of African American women added a racial dimension to the already terrifying crimes. The Atlanta Police Department, already stretched thin and facing criticism for their handling of the case, struggled to find any credible leads. The investigation was hampered by limited resources, lack of any forensic technology, because remember, this happened back in 1911 and 12, so a long time ago, and also the community's mistrust of the police further complicated efforts to gather reliable information and tips, because no one really wanted to give any information because they didn't trust the police. As the summer of 1911 progressed, the killings continued unabated. Reports of the murders began to appear in local newspapers, bringing the gruesome details of the crimes to a wider audience and increasing public pressure on the authorities to solve the case. Despite the mounting pressure, the police were unable to make any significant progress. Several suspects were questioned, but no arrests were made. The original Night Stalker. The Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez, terrified Southern California in 1984 and 1985, committing a series of brutal crimes that left a mark on the region and its residents. Born Ricardo Levaya Munoz Ramirez on February 29, 1960 in El Paso, Texas, his early life was marred by abuse and trauma. His father, a former police officer, was physically abusive, and his cousin, a Vietnam War veteran, introduced him to graphic violence, showing him photographs of mutilations and even killing his wife in front of Ramirez. Ramirez moved to Los Angeles in 1984, where his reign of terror began. His crimes were characterized by extreme brutality and a complete lack of remorse. He was known for breaking into homes, often through unlocked windows or doors, and attacking his victims while they slept. His methods varied. He used guns, knives, hammers, and other objects to inflict pain and suffering. His victims ranged in age from young children to elderly adults, showing no preference for age, race, or gender. One of his first known victims was 79-year-old Jenny Vincow, whom he attacked on June 28, 1984. He stabbed her repeatedly, slashed her throat, and burglarized her home. This marked the beginning of a series of home invasions that would instill fear throughout Southern California. The press dubbed him the Night Stalker, a name that struck fear into the hearts of residents who began to take extra precautions, such as installing security systems and sleeping with weapons nearby. Ramirez's crimes escalated in both frequency and violence. On March 17, 1985, he attacked Maria Hernandez outside her home, shooting her in the face. Miraculously, she survived by raising her hands to protect herself, the keys in her hand deflecting the bullet. Ramirez then entered her home and shot her roommate, Daili Okazaki, in the head, killing her instantly. On the same night, he pulled 30-year-old Sai Lian Yu from her car and shot her several times, leaving her to die. These attacks demonstrated his willingness to kill anyone who crossed his path. Throughout his crime spree, Ramirez showed an obsession with Satanism. He left pentagrams, a symbol associated with satanic rituals, at some of his crime scenes. He also made references to Satan during his attacks, further terrifying his victims. This connection to the occult added another layer of horror to his already terrifying crimes and fueled media speculation and public panic. Ramirez's capture came on August 31, 1985, thanks to the efforts of both law enforcement and the public, after committing a home invasion and failing to steal a car. He was recognized by bystanders who chased him and subdued him until the police arrived. His trial, which began in July 1988, was a media sensation. The courtroom was often filled with spectators, including women, who were inexplicably attracted to the killer, sending him letters and even showing up in court to support him. Despite the overwhelming evidence against him, Ramirez maintained an air of defiance, often flashing a pentagram drawn on his palm and shouting, "Hail Satan," during his court appearances. The trial concluded on September 20th, 1989, with Ramirez being convicted of 13 counts of murder, 5 counts of attempted murder, 11 counts of SA, and 14 counts of burglary. He was sentenced to death and sent to California's San Quentin State Prison. Despite his conviction, he continued to attract attention, receiving fan mail and maintaining a following. Just insane that this guy had a following. He spent the rest of his life on death row, where he died of complications related to B-cell lymphoma on June 7, 2013, at the age of 53. The legacy of Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, is one of fear, brutality, and a stark reminder of the darkness that can lurk within humanity. And even though this one wasn't unsolved and it did get solved and he was put in jail, I put it in here because, it's so brutal and kind of interesting. I think it's important for people to learn about, I guess. And it went unsolved for a few years, which just must have been so terrifying for everyone in Southern California during this time when he was going about murdering people in these ways, just anyone that came across his path. And even though it's solved today, it was unsolved for so long, and that's why I put it in here. But, I added this just because I felt like it was a good thing to add. And that wraps up this Unsolved Mysteries video. I really enjoyed this video, and I love these Unsolved Mysteries because they're just fun to research and write and, read for you guys and narrate. And let me know what you'd like to see in the future. Would you like to see more of these, more Reddit stories, more different possible avenue I can go down, more icebergs? Just let me know down in the comments below. And thank you so much for watching. As always, like and subscribe to the channel. It helps a lot. And all right, until next time,